historic event would be sung by someone French. But they wanted the performance to embody all the passion of that momentous event, so they chose an American, Jessye Norman, proof perhaps that in a way a great artist is stateless. The voice carries no passport. The magic is universal, in Paris, Rome, Berlin, or at home on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera. She is celebrated for her treatment of classic European opera, but her voice is rooted in the American South.
There is more memory inside of me for the spiritual than perhaps most of the European music that I sing. Because this music was sung by my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and all of these other people that have made me.
Before she conquered the stages of New York, Berlin, Milan, and Paris, Jessye Norman had to prove herself in Augusta, Georgia, in the choir of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, where her sister is now choir director. She was part of a close-knit, middle-class family where success was not a dream or an option, it was an order.
If you came in with your report card from school with A's and then one B, then the question was, why didn't you get an A in sociology as well, or whatever? And one needed to give an explanation. And one was taught to be a part of the community, as well as trying to be a good person. All sounds terribly old-fashioned, doesn't it?
It does, and one reason it does is we hear so much today about the disintegration, for example, of the black family.
Yes. What I would like people to know, that there really are black families with two parents that are looking after their children, that are wanting them to excel, and who instill in these children at a very, very early age their worth and their place in this world.
For inspiration, she chose Marian Anderson, whose voice won her access to all the world's great stages in the 40s and 50s, provided, of course, that she remembered her place.
I couldn't understand the kind of racism that she had encountered, about not being allowed to go into hotels and not having a place to eat before a concert and being forced on tour to stay with friends because it just wasn't done that she would stay in any hotel for which she could pay.
Jessye Norman received formal voice training at Howard University and the University of Michigan. The Berlin Opera signed her to a contract. She stayed in Europe for years, learned German, French, and Italian, learned how to become difficult, refused roles she thought would harm her voice, refused to sing opera at all for several years. It did not prevent her from being idolized in Vienna and Berlin and London. In Paris, they went overboard. She became a kind of imported national treasure, the inspiration for a movie called Diva, about a reclusive, temperamental opera star. Somewhere along the way, you stopped being the kid from Augusta and became a full, full-fledged diva.
What does that mean?
Well, will you tell me what it means?
It isn't always, and I must point out, a compliment to be called a diva.
That's right.
No.
It's often not a compliment.
Often not a compliment.
It suggests
Someone who's a bit sort of difficult to be around and who's a little bit too demanding and just
selfish.
a little bit selfish, yeah. But of course those things do not apply to me.
Grander than life.
Grander than life, I don't know. Maybe that applies to me.
Excessive.
Excessive, yes, I admit it, yes.
So you're all of those things. You're a diva.
Well, I'm some of those things. I'm not all of them. I'm the good part.
And like all divas, she has achieved the status of legend. She is said to be the only one of recent memory whose voice covers the spectrum, soprano, mezzo, contralto. The legendary status affirmed by portraits by Karsh, a fellow legend.
Very nice, man. Beautiful.
As someone who came from such a warm and loving and supportive family, you've chosen to remain single. Why?
But that doesn't mean that I'm lonely.
No, it doesn't.
That just means that I'm not married.
Is it because the likelihood that any mere man would just be a weakling in your presence?
Well, I could never be in love with just a mere man.
Maybe it's that no mere man can match the horrors and heroics of those operas. The roles she chooses usually involve love of mythic proportion. Always tragic, rarely does she play the languishing ladies of the stage. Cities burn, nations suffer, gods wreak terrible havoc on mankind. She finds Aida, for example, just a little bit pallid.
I mean, Aida is not a very complicated story to understand. I mean, there's a girl that's falling in love with the wrong guy, and it doesn't go right, you know.
Carmen, on the other hand, is her kind of dame.
I think she's fantastic. She's strong in the face of love. She's strong in the face of life. She will do anything to survive. And she's strong in the face of death.
Jessye Norman's majestic proportions have kept her from performing on the opera stage the role she may love most. But last year she went to Paris to do her first recording of Carmen with Seiji Ozawa of the Boston Symphony. You see a little bit of Jessye Norman and Carmen?
Well, I think that most women would like to pretend that Carmen has something to do with us.
Is there a lot of soap opera in opera?
Of course there is. I think that's what makes people like it, don't you? The fact that they're villains and heroines and heroes and, I don't know, holy grails and gold nuggets and all the rest of them that everybody's trying to get. I think that that's what makes it interesting. It's life, just blown up really big, isn't it?
Ordinary life sometimes takes on the passions and forces of opera. In London a few years ago, she had to follow the rock group Dire Straits at a raucous benefit concert for Nelson Mandela. She did it with grace. What were your feelings when you watched him walk out of prison?
I can see it as plain as day. He walked as though he were in charge of it all, and somehow it seemed again that the world was going to come right. It was an extremely moving moment.
It was opera.
It was opera, wasn't it? Wasn't it?
Spirituals, the songs, the church songs of your childhood.
Yes.
You still sing them. They have great appeal.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody loves them. Everybody, in whatever country, it doesn't matter what the native tongue of my audience is, they've heard the spirituals before, and they want to hear them again, and they want to hear them out of a black mouth. He's got the birds and the bees right in here. He's got the beasts of the field right in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hand.
Are you a different Jessye Norman then when you're singing that music?
Maybe this is a part of me in a way that no matter how much I might study the culture in Austria or Germany, that is not my heritage.